Today I heard the first thing ever, biotech longevity. I have never heard the term before. It was impactful, it was interesting, and I hope you felt the same. As we move along, I'm prepared to bring to you a fireside chat from smart to intelligent, the game-changing impact of 5G connectivity on the next generation of cities. This particular fire chat is going to talk about revolutionizing the urban infrastructure and the way we live, work, play, and communicate within our smart cities. With unprecedented speed, reliability, and the capacity, 5G enables smart cities to reach new heights. This session will dive into exciting opportunities and prospects that 5G brings. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an esteemed interviewer that will interview a panelist of experts that will focus on this new breaking technology. Mr. Omar, and I've been practicing his last name, he's teaching me, Al-Radifda. I'm close. He's the head of compliance and public policy at Maxam. He'll guide us through a captivating afternoon on the transformative powers of 5G. We are going to explore the boundless possibilities in this next generation technology. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you our very own architect, Omar.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attendance and presence in this session. Today I'll be joined by two distinguished guests.
Oh, sir.
I'll be joined by two distinguished guests. Both have profound experiences in technology and telecommunications. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Jawad Jalal Abbasi, Head of Middle East and North Africa at GSMA. Thank you. Jawad has an experience of almost 25 years. I don't want to make you that old. Has an experience of 25 years in the ICT industry across multiple organizations across USA and the Middle East. He's also a co-founder at the Arab Advisors Group. Welcome, Jawad.
Thank you.
I'll be also joined by Mr. Pritam Goyal. Pritam is the chair at the Data Center Sustainability Accreditation at IGBC. Also, Pritam chairs multiple work streams across different sectors in IGBC for sustainability and different works. Welcome, Pritam. So in today's session, we will be discussing the effects of 5G on smart cities. The World Bank estimates that 55% of the population nowadays live in cities, and the number is prone to increase to 70% by 2050. So smart cities is being argued as not even a luxury nowadays. It's a necessity to actually drive the requirements to cater for this growth in both in urban population and size. Connectivity in urban areas is very important, and 5G is no exception, because it's the wireless technology that has revolutionized wireless connectivity in terms of speed, low latency, and other aspects. So I'll start the session. Thank you. Hello? Hello? Okay. Okay. So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, Jawad, GSMA has been around for quite some time now, and it's been involved in the mobile industry almost ever since its inception, because when GSM became the go-to protocol for mobile communications, GSMA was there from the beginning. So it's been through all the phases of the mobile technologies that we have seen so far, and now in 5G. There's a lot of talk about 5G. There has been a lot of rollout in multiple cities around the world, some in advanced stages, some in different stages, let's say. So where are we now? What is the latest updates on 5G?
Thank you, Omar. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. As you know, the GSMA is the industry that represents the mobile ecosystem. All of the mobile operators are essentially members of the GSMA, in addition to vendors and other players in the wider ecosystem. There are 5.8 billion connections to the mobile industry. It is the largest connectivity platform on the face of the earth. And as you know, we had the analog generation 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. And 5G is already around 20% of connections globally are 5G connections. It has been the fastest growing generation of mobile technology, aided by the fact that handset base was already well established, and there was latent demand for the service when it was launched. So it took the 5G connections only 3 or so years to reach 1 billion connections, whereas for 3G it took 10 years for the 3G networks to reach 1 billion connections. So the next happening stage now of 5G deployment is 5G standalone, because 5G standalone networks are the ones that will provide the full promise of 5G networks, which is very low latency, network slicing, and very high speeds. And that will allow many applications, especially when it comes to, for example, automotive industry, autonomous vehicles. I always give the example of an optimal 4G network versus an optimal 5G network. For a self-driving vehicle, for the command to stop on an optimal 4G network, the car will have traveled around 5 or 6 feet, whereas on a 5G network, it will have traveled only 1 or 2 inches. That's where you really cannot have the future of autonomous vehicles without established 5G connections. So many of the operators now, I believe the number is over 150 or so, have already committed and established 5G standalone networks, mainly in dense urban market centers, because that's usually where the most suitable investment rationale for 5G networks. So this is the current landscape of 5G across the world.
So, a lot of information in this. So, you mentioned quite a few important facts. You mentioned that the number of connections for 5G has reached or exceeded 2.8 billion.
20% of 5.8 billion, so almost 1.5 billion.
1.5 billion. Okay, so it means the adoption has been high enough for 5G, but there was a concern because during the discussions about the standards of 5G and the verticals for 5G, the use cases and applications sounded at the time nice and realistic, but there may have been some adoption issues at the end. So now the number based on the numbers you mentioned. So is there is there the reality check? I mean, what are the usages of those connections basically?
The most successful 5G, this is much better now actually if you're cross, yeah. So the most successful 5G use case so far has been fixed wireless access. So operators that want to give fiber-like internet connectivity to businesses and households 5G allowed them to do that. That enhanced competition, so a challenging operator can challenge an incumbent in fiber optics and do 5G. And of course, when we talk about 5G connections being 20% of the total, that means they're using 5G at some part of their day. So it's not yet fully universal. So in many cases, you're talking about 5G use of around 10 to 20% of their time based on when they're roaming in that specific part of town where there's 5G network. So there's still deployment issues, of course, as the operators expand geographic coverage of 5G networks. Now, it's maybe a good chance to talk about the three major gaps that the mobile industry tackles. There's the coverage gap. Around a few years ago, more than 1.5 billion people in the world lived outside the connections, outside the coverage of reliable mobile internet networks. This has reduced to 4% of the total population. So currently, the coverage gap is only 4% of the world's population. Less than 400 million people live outside the reliable coverage of a mobile internet network. So the industry has been extremely successful in completely reducing the coverage gap. We have two gaps that are still stubborn. The usage gap. So around 46% of people that live within the services of reliable mobile internet networks do not use the mobile internet. And what we as an industry say is that we need a lot of cooperation between all stakeholders, governments, private sector, operators, vendors, civil society, and so on, to bridge that usage gap, because we believe bringing those almost 2.5 billion people from not using the mobile internet to using the mobile internet will bring about massive socioeconomic benefits to their societies. And this way, this is how we can tackle, for example, the issues of the unbanked population, the issues of people not being able to partake in the modern digital economy. So this usage gap is still persists, it's a problem. And the last gap, of course, is the investment gap. The operators have, to launch 5G, the operators have spent close to $1 trillion over the past few years. And as the costs of capital expenditure increased markedly to expand 5G and 4G networks around the world, the growth in mobile revenues has not been very high or relatively high. So there's a problem of return on investment, and if you have a problem of return on investment, you have an investment gap, and you also have a reluctance and the possibility of not having enough attraction, not having investments in mobile networks to be attractive. So we need concerted efforts also on spectrum policy, taxation policy, and competition policy to make sure that there's always an incentive for investors to invest in mobile broadband networks. So again, excellent news on coverage gap, a lot of work to be done on investment gap and on usage gap, and which will hopefully, having the 5G networks and the extra use cases of more successful use cases of 5G networks will help both usage gap and investment gap. Thank you.
Very interesting. So you've brought up the point of investment, and you've also kept mentioning operators, the telecom operators. So it's the role of bringing 5G and all the required infrastructure has been taken up by the operators so far, but there are investment opportunities, I believe, for the infrastructure segments as well, and that brings me to Preetam in this case. So where does the infrastructure industry see the opportunity in 5G? I mean, 5G had by design a lot of inherent features, cloud-based, cloud-native, relies a lot on the digital infrastructure, etc. So I believe this opportunity is presented to you as the infrastructure industry. So where do you see the opportunity as from your side, from your point of view?
Thanks, Omar. I think Javed has covered it in a detailed, way. It's closed. That's okay. So Javed has covered it in a vast manner. But what I would say that the cloud is one of the thing which is is the most one another important part of proper implementation of 5G technologies. So where the cloud like hyperscale and the cloud in edge computing. So in both cases, so cloud is helping, how? So by having distributed computing thing, which is the power of cloud, and there, whether it is hardware, software, or networking, so it helps to implementing 5G. So one part of the aspect is, operators, so who are creating their towers and other infrastructure. But the next biggest thing is the data storage, their processing, and then their reduction in the latency, so that there should be faster response, which is the most important part of the 5G. So here, how 5G is creating a difference from the existing 4G or LT technology. See, if you see the difference between the latency part, 4G is around 100 millisecond, and 5G is up to 1 to 10 millisecond, which is 1/10. So if that latency is required, so the most important thing is the network should be near to the customers. And how that could happen? By having edge data centers. So which are the small data centers and where the processing of the data can happen immediately, and then the return time, the response time would be the fastest. And there, where the cloud services, cloud data centers, whether it is in physical form or in the virtualization form, create a big impact. This is what I'm understanding. And further, if you see, how it will impact on the smart city environment. So like, the transportation, health services, education services, and all these things are the basic things which are required to the general people for their development. I think this helps to make smart cities intelligent.
So, so edge data centers has I've seen implementations where the idea of having edge computing and edge data centers, um, been debated a lot. But I'm yet to see a success story about edge. Do you think has this idea been implemented successfully in anywhere or in India, for instance? Is there a specific use case where the edge data centers has been implemented and used successfully to create the low latency and all the required performance parameters? W-
Yeah, this is a very good question, I think, Omar. See, if you see, there are the most important part in the smart city is that the safety and security of the general public. So if I'll give a small example, very interesting one. So when we have highways where you can run your vehicle at the speed of any up to its maximum limit, but it can cause it can be unsafe. So to make things safe, so there are cameras there. So sometime what happens, so if sometime it happens if a car is getting driven near that camera, the speed can be reduced. And when that camera is moved and when the vehicle is moved out from that camera, the speed can be increased till the next camera will come. So now how things are happening, there is analytics where AI come into that with the lowest latency. So there is a calculation of the time at how fast that vehicle has been covered that distance. So if that time is lesser than it should be, So there is a fine, there is a penalty on that.
Okay.
So which is making, which is forcing, that driver to keep the speed into that limit. So that is one example.
So has 5G and edge data centers been used in that use case?
Absolutely, absolutely. See how this happened. It is all because of your edge data centers, where your IP backbones, throughout the country. So those IP backbones are acting as a data aggregator, and those data aggregator sites are, you know, you can call them edge data centers. So which can be, up to from few kilowatts up to a megawatt. You can say that,
Mm-hmm.
and then those towers, and it helps them to process that data fast.
Okay. So would you say that it's quite an interesting use case, but how scalable is it? I mean, can this be rolled out, or has it been rolled out nationwide in India, or this has been like in a test bed somewhere, and where it's been running?
So as Javed said, it's not that easy. It's difficult, no doubt about that. Geographically, it needs intensive implementation
Mm.
and accuracy, which is very important. Then it needs a huge cost investment, which is there. So this is, but what I would say that this is not impossible. So if I see that there are around 100 smart cities in India, out of that, approximately 91% are, implementation is almost completed. And if you see out of 778 districts, 773 districts are already covered with the 5G. So there is a need to be, you know, disciplined implementation of the things, and there where administrations come into picture. Yes, it is difficult to answer your question, but it is not impossible.
Yeah.
That I would say that.
Certainly. So, Jawad, I'm going to be directing this question to you. So, Preetham mentioned a use case where 5G is being used to basically enforce, road speed limitations and laws. Where does GSMA see 5G being used mostly in smart city use cases? Has there been a study of this by GSMA so far?
Well, the nice thing about smart city applications is that IoT has been for a while, and IoT has there are standards in the 2G, 3G, and 4G networks, and 5G will probably bring a lot of use cases. But it's smart cities are not something that's just about to come because of 5G. It actually has been the case using 3G and 2G networks before, and a big example is sensors on traffic on trash collection. So if you have sensors that measure how filled up the trash containers in the streets are, so that the trash collection service measures the map of the actual truck based on how each container is filled, so that it's not the same path every time. It's actually a path based on which ones need to be emptied and which ones can remain for the next 3 or 4 days. That reduces congestion and that reduces pollution, and that can be done using 2G IoT. So what I'm trying to say is that the mobile industry and the networks with IoT, Internet of Things, have been a major enabler of smart cities. 5G will hopefully unleash a whole new wave of innovative products and services, but smart cities have not started with 5G. They've been there and applications well before 5G. I hope this answers it. Remotely, at least.
It does to some extent. So you'd say that 5G will come and build upon the existing use cases of 2G, 3G, and 4G, let's say.
Yes,
Okay.
and what we're hoping for is that the extra advantages of 5G networks, namely network slicing, where a hospital can get a 5G network tailored to remote medicine and A factory 2 kilometers away can get 5G net tailored to precision manufacturing, and they're different on speeds and latency and so on. We're hoping for a wave of innovation that brings a lot of advantages to smart cities. Another example, remember, the sharing economy only started with 4G networks. So the 3G networks were nice and fine, but the major use cases of 4G brought us Uber and Netflix and all the sharing economy that wasn't really there before 4G. So we're hoping for another wave of innovation using the 5G networks.
Right. Well, let's hope it comes soon as well. Inshallah. So, Preetam, I think since you chair with IGBC a lot of the accreditation work for sustainability and data centers, which means you have to work with also some governmental bodies as well to achieve your sustainability objectives, either for the data centers, etc. So, where do you see the challenges from regulatory side and government side in supporting sustainability objectives for data centers and digital infrastructure as a whole?
Omar, this is, once again you have asked a very great question. See, what I am understanding that government has established, their policies regarding that. Now the next step is, you know, the implementation, which totally dependent, upon to the city municipal corporations and the vendors on that. And on that, what I understand that is the monitoring, which is the most important part of this story. So where, as just Javed said, on the trash collection system, okay, this is one of the thing which I could say that. And then again, what I would say that, for the transport congestion is another example. In the metro cities, during the peak hours, where, to cover the distance of 5 kilometer, it may sometime take hours. So with this 5G technology, which can handle up to 1 million devices in 1 square kilometer area, so that can help to inform drivers to take alternate routes. That's another example of that. So if that would not happen, then the penalties on those people can make them more disciplined on that. I think it is more towards the people that how much discipline they would acquire on that, because it is not only the technology, not only the guidelines, not only the implementations, it is how as a citizen I am taking it and I am using it. I think that is the most important part of that.
And all right. So I think I was just about to ask about the time as well. So I think I will close now. So, final question. Both. Where do you see the region heading towards 5G, Jawad, and for same question for Pritam as well.
Yeah, the Arab world is peculiar in that it spans all developmental phases. So we have very rich countries like in the Gulf who were pioneers in launching 5G networks, and then we have middle-income countries, and we have poor countries, and we have least developed countries as well. Now, the first wave of 5G networks were in the Gulf countries. They were pioneers, and actually a lot was learned because of that. And now we have countries like Jordan, which has launched recently. Egypt and Tunisia will be launching. So they're on the lagging edge of technology, and they're learning, and they're benefiting from the lower costs and also the established use cases. And we still have countries that don't have 4G or even reliable. So I would say another 5 or 6 or 10 years for many other countries to launch 5G. But overall, population-wise, especially with Egypt's launch, I would say almost by 2030, maybe around 30 to 40% of the population will be covered by 5G networks.
And
So what I would say that, if I say, take an example of India, where the urban tele density is 131% and the rural is around 60%. So I think people are now looking towards the 6G to implementation of that. So I think I am totally with Javed. It all depends upon the economies, how they are taking it forward, because ultimately it is the people who has to use it. Governments can bring those. So I think the future is, it is tightly related, interrelated with smart cities to make them intelligent. So 5G, 6Gs. So these are the core of the things. Yes.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will end my questions. And I think if anyone is interested for Q&A.
Were there any questions from the audience?
Should I take? See, this is a interesting example, and I'm happy that you asked it. See, I was discussing with Omar this. So I was traveling from in India from Mumbai to Pune. So that highway, that vehicle should not go beyond 80 kilometer, and there are indicators which are saying, hey, your speed is this much. So this is all because of this technology speed, low latency, which 5G is helping on that, and the data aggregator which is happening, which is also the component of 5G technology. So it is not only the penalties; it is telling to the driver, hey, you are now at 79, you are at now 78. So which helps. So and it is only happening because of this technology thing. The essence is the latency part, which is reducing to milliseconds, which helps to immediately giving the response, seeing it, analyzing it, and reverting back. I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
That concludes the end of day one for Future Cities. Myself, the entire organizing staff of AIM Congress want to thank you for joining us today. This has been one of the most engaging topics that we've heard all day, and it actually starts a major technology piece for us. Tomorrow we roll into AI, we roll into automotives, okay? We roll into a series of applications taking us to another level into technology. So I'm hoping that you all will join us and also join us tonight. Everyone has their ticket for the gala? Absolutely. Then I will see you tonight. If not, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for attending Future Cities.